ruins. I hope you can hear this over all the wind, because it's pretty breezy out here. This is also the thing that they were trying to rebuild on top of the ruined tower over there in Copenhagen. So hopefully I can get inside and take some photos there. So this is up close, and I believe we'll be able to look inside. This is the first structure to be erected for the purpose of being an astronomical observatory in Europe. This structure was built low to the ground. It helped to keep the astronomers out of all the wind. It's windy here. And over there was where his first observatory was, which was built into his own personal chateau or castle. The people who lived on this island were not real fond of Tycho Brahe because they thought that this land was theirs, and then the king said, no, it's not. This belongs to Tycho Brahe now, and you all have to work 2 days a week to support this guy, plus paying taxes. So as you can imagine, they didn't think he was so cool. The question that a student had was, why is it that scientists seem to squabble as much as they do? Could they not all just pull together and try to work for a solution to the problem of whether the Earth moved or didn't move, and not squabble with each other as much as they do? You know, scientists are people, and one of the things that attracts people in science is to be the first person to come up with an idea. There's a certain amount of recognition that goes with that, and if you're a smart guy or a smart girl and you think that, hey, I can figure this out on my own, you might be inclined to try to fight for your ideas over the next person's ideas. This is one of the reasons why the ideas of, sometimes in various popular culture, there'll be the idea that scientists know something and are hiding it. And if you know anything about scientists, you know that that's not going to work, because there's a couple ways to really make a name for yourself in science. One is to discover something, that people haven't discovered before. And then the other is to show that what someone else has discovered is wrong. And, both of those mean that you're not that likely to play well with everybody, because, you're trying to get your ideas out in front. It's a competitive business. How many different theories for the universe were out there at the time of Galileo and Riccioli? This was a good question. The answer is a lot. Obviously, you had the Copernican theory, you had the Tychonic theory, you had the Ptolemaic theory. Those are the three we've talked about. But then there were all kinds of hybrids, kind of like the Tychonic theory. There was a Capellan theory. So you had, where Mercury and Venus went around the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn went around the Earth, like in the Ptolemaic theory. Riccioli actually specifically thought that Mercury, Venus, and Mars went around the Sun. Jupiter and Saturn were like in the Ptolemaic theory. His logic for that was that Jupiter had moons, and by the time he was working, it would have been discovered that Saturn had moons, and so he thought that stuff that had moons would be centered on the Earth. So the Sun he sort of viewed as like Mercury and Venus and Mars were like its moons, and then you had Jupiter and Jupiter had its moons, and then Saturn had its moons. Then you had versions of these theories in which people argued that the Earth was at the center, but it rotated, so it didn't have a motion around the Sun, but it did have a motion on its own axis. So you can have the Tychonic theory, with the Earth in the center, but rotating to explain the rising and setting of the Sun, and then all the machinery of the Tychonic universe explain the motions of the planets. So there's a whole lot of different competing theories that were out there. We sort of are focusing on kind of the big three, the Copernican, the Ptolemaic, and the Tychonic. And of course, the Ptolemaic gets ruled out by the telescopic observations, but you know, that's the one we've been talking about for a long time. Hey, I meant to point out this hat I've been wearing today. I got it at the Tycho Brahe Museum. It says Tycho Brahe on it. I think it's supposed to be his actual signature. I also got a Tycho Brahe tie and a Tycho Brahe t-shirt.
I'm including this church in this video because I think this is probably the only structure on this island that was actually here when Tycho Brahe was here. This is, I think it's St. James's Church on the island of Hven, and I'm going to show you some video from the inside. I couldn't talk there because they were setting up for Sunday services. It's not a tourist attraction, it's a church. But inside, according to the guidebooks, the front altarpiece, which I will show you, was donated to the church by Tycho Brahe, and there's a statue of Tycho Brahe in there as well. Perhaps the donation of the altarpiece that helped Tycho. Perhaps he was trying to make up for how he had come in and taken over these people's islands and put them all to work for his scientific projects. I doubt it was enough. If I were someone on the island of Hven, I don't think that the altarpiece would make up for the fact that I lost 1/3 of my work days to work on his projects. This is also on the island of Hven. When Tycho was doing research here, he had his own paper producing operation so that he could print books and had to make paper for the books, and he controlled the whole process. That over in that area is the dam that he built, and then this pond is part of the system of dams and ponds that supplied water to power the mill for the paper mill. So up there is the dam and the pond. I presume that the paper mill stood around here somewhere, or around on the other side of this hill, that powered by the water runoff from the dam and the pond. Way over there is that church that we were looking at before. There it is. So not much is left, actually nothing is left other than the pond of Tycho's paper making operation. Supposedly it was all destroyed in 1602, maybe by people who were fed up with Tycho Brahe and not too sad to see him pass away.